I mean, it will be part of it. I suspect that the working from home is quite a large element as well. When we've had past waves, London has been particularly effective at changing its behaviour. Some combination of voluntary changes and government mandated effects having large effects in London itself. London tends to be able to adjust its behaviour a bit more than other parts of the country, and a bit more rapidly. It has a large capacity for people to work from home, and once you eliminate things like some of the commuting or moving around on the heavily packed public transport, that has quite a large effect on R. So I wouldn't necessarily assume that everywhere we'll be able to adjust things as rapidly as London has done. But I think that that's clearly a significant part of what's going on here. Some of that would have happened anyway. I mean, the main time when people do all of their sort of partying is a little bit earlier in December. So it might be that some of that would have softened off. Certainly would have softened off once you come into the Christmas period itself. And a lot of people move out of London and go and visit relatives in other parts of the country, things like that. So I think quite a lot of that was sort of baked into the process anyway. But I agree that that's a large element of what's going on. Now, the thing about that is, does that mean that once we get into the new year, then we're going to have some new wave? Well, we might have a bit. I mean, I don't think that's that likely. But suppose that we did. I don't think that that's particularly problematic, because the thing with Omicron wasn't that the virus itself, given our very high levels of vaccination, and in fact, it turns out it seems to be intrinsically milder as well, it wasn't that it was a particularly dangerous virus in terms of how harmful it was. The danger of it was that everyone was going to get infected at the same time. But what's happened now is we had a load of people infected, and if we've now taken the peak off, such that this peak is going to come nowhere near threatening the overwhelming of the NHS, we'd have to have a very strange thing happened subsequently for us to end up with enough more people infected once we came into the new year to really create any kind of problem. And I think that that's very unlikely. It seems to me that if we've seen the peak occur in London, if we've really seen that, as opposed to it being something like people not wanting to test ahead of Christmas or something like that, if we've really seen the peak in infections already, it seems very unlikely to me that we could have a serious peak that was 6 or 8 times higher once we came into January. I just don't